In March of 2021, global trade didn't stop because of a war, a strike, a pandemic, or a financial collapse. It stopped because one ship got stuck. Not because the ship was unusually reckless, but because modern global trade was designed to fail that way. Global trade looks abstract. Spreadsheets, charts, supply chains. But in practice, it runs through a surprisingly small number of physical choke points. Narrow passages where ships, cargo, and schedules are forced to converge. These choke points aren't accidents. They exist because concentrating flow makes systems cheaper and easier to manage. Ports, canals, rail hubs, and data centers all work the same way. Move everything through fewer places, and you gain efficiency. But you also accept that when one of those places fails, there may be nowhere else to go. One of the most important of those passages connects Asia to Europe. Every year, nearly 12% of global trade moves through a single canal. Oil, food, electronics, raw materials. For decades, the system worked because nothing went wrong, and because it was never designed for anything to go wrong. The failure didn't begin in the canal. It began years earlier, with a series of rational decisions. Shipping companies were under constant pressure to move more cargo at lower cost. The solution was scale. Bigger ships, taller stacks, longer hulls. Each new generation reduced the cost of shipping a single container. And as ships grew, infrastructure adapted around them. Canals were widened. Traffic rules were adjusted. Margins for error became smaller, but acceptable. Because under normal conditions, the system worked. The critical decision wasn't to build one large ship. It was to design a global system where efficiency mattered more than redundancy, where delays were expensive and backups were optional. Highly efficient systems share a common weakness. They work perfectly, right up until they don't. In the canal, the margin for error was already thin. The ship was long. The passage was narrow. Traffic moved in one direction at a time. Under normal conditions, those constraints were manageable. When the ship lost alignment, it wasn't because of a single dramatic failure. Investigations later pointed to a combination of routine factors, strong crosswinds, limited visibility, and the challenge of maneuvering a vessel of that size through a narrow passage. Events that would normally be recoverable became irreversible once the system's margins were exhausted. But the system had very little tolerance for deviation. There were no parallel routes, no practical way to reroute traffic, and no fast mechanism to clear a blockage of that scale. The blind spot wasn't the possibility of a ship getting stuck. It was the assumption that, if it ever happened, recovery would be quick. The system optimized for flow, not for failure. When the blockage happened, it wasn't on an obscure route. It happened in the Suez Canal, one of the most heavily trafficked trade corridors in the world. Within hours, ships began to queue, then dozens, then hundreds. Cargo that was supposed to arrive in days was delayed by weeks. Factories waited for parts. Retailers waited for inventory. Energy markets watched shipments stall. None of these disruptions were catastrophic on their own, but together, they exposed how tightly synchronized the system had become. A delay in one place created uncertainty everywhere else, because when flow stops at a choke point, the effects don't stay local. The lesson of the blockage isn't about ships or canals. It's about how modern systems are designed. Over time, efficiency became the dominant goal. Faster movement, lower costs, tighter coordination. Redundancy, by contrast, looked wasteful. Backup capacity sat unused. Extra margins reduced profits. Flexibility slowed the system down. so it was gradually designed out. The result was a system that performed exceptionally well. As long as nothing unexpected happened, the blockage didn't expose a rare failure. It exposed a common trade-off: efficiency versus resilience. Resilience is difficult to justify before a failure happens. Its benefits are invisible. Its costs are immediate. Extra capacity looks wasteful. Backup systems look unnecessary until the day they aren't. And a reminder that when systems become too optimized, small disruptions no longer stay small. If you want more breakdowns like this, focused on decisions, systems, and unintended consequences, please subscribe to the channel.